Hello there, good morning and welcome to another Daily Ramble show here at Claret and Booze. My name's John. Before we go any further, if you like the show today, then please hit the like button, the thumbs up. Don't forget, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Claret and Booze. And if you really like what you're seeing, then don't forget to hit the bell notification where you will be advised anytime any of our shows go live. Now, on today's show, unfortunately, once more, we're going to be talking about transfers and the ongoing problems that West Ham and David Moyes seem to be experiencing in the transfer window. We're going to talk about a couple of players specifically, and we're also going to talk about some comments from David Moyes, both at the start of the week and as of today. Now, as we know, first game of the season, we played Manchester City. We lost. Now, we probably knew we was going to lose, didn't we? Although we did beat them last season. The defeat wasn't the problem for me. It was the manner of the defeat. Now, it was just abject of ideas going forward. Now I know against teams like Manchester City, you're not going to get a lot of the ball, as it proved. But the opportunities you do get are few and far between. And when you get those opportunities, in my opinion, you need to make the most of them. And for us, West Ham, on Sunday, every time we went forward, we generally looked devoid of ideas. There was no flair. There was no creativity. And that's been a problem of West Ham for a while. Now, David Moyes is a fantastic manager. What he's done for the club, in my opinion, has been brilliant. We've had 2 great seasons. But he's very rigid, very regimental. And as a centre-back, as he was when he was playing, he sort of builds from the back, which I totally respect and totally understand. So as much as the Manchester City defeat wasn't a great one on Sunday, what I was happy with was the comments that Moyes gave in an interview where he basically said that West Ham need to get a few more Payets. Now, Dimitri Payet, he was fantastic for us. He got us off the edge of our seats. So to hear Moyes come out with such statements really filled me with hope. Hope that we were now going to see a little bit of a change in the trend of the type of players we buy. Not because the players we've bought haven't been good, because some of them have really come, to the top of their game. Someone like Bowen, for example, someone like Dawson, players who we didn't maybe expect them to reach the heights that they did. But we do at West Ham crave that flair player. Joe Cole, Paolo Di Canio, Dimitri Payet. For the older viewers like Nigel, Alan Devonshire. So as much as we know we need that hard, solid, tough tackling player or players, we crave that bit of flair. We need that bit of flair. All teams do. But at the moment, West Ham need it more than most. We've got a real problem with our number 10 position at the minute for me. We've got Ben Rama. Now, Ben Rama, for me, has flattered to deceive in his time at the club. And I've probably been a bit harsh to him at times. Because he's played on the wing a lot, on his wrong foot, on his weak foot. We're not seeing him as a number 10. Vlasic, I don't know much about the guy because we're not really seeing him in his right position, number 10. Lanzini plays there, and look, I love Lanzini. He's been fantastic for the club. And I just think that since his injury, he hasn't consistently got back to the level that we crave and that we would expect from him. And then you've got Fornals, who is a workaholic, works hard, but again, doesn't really create much. And this is the problem for us. So, as I said, as I'm sure many of you would agree, when Moyes came out saying that we need to get a few Payets in the team, that filled me with immense hope. And one player that over the last 48 hours we've been linked with again, stronger, the links are getting stronger, and the hope that we can possibly get him is a player at Lyon. I'm sure you know him, Paqueta, the Brazilian international. Now, Paqueta is a good age. He's only 24. He's got over 30 caps for the Brazilian national team, as well as some caps for Brazil under 20. He started his youth career with Flamengo in Brazil, signed professional contracts in 2016. And in 2019, he moved to Italian giants AC Milan for a figure of 35 million euros. At the time, a lot was put on his shoulders. He was being linked and compared to, some of the Brazilian greats, like Neymar, and others to name but a few. But he didn't have a great time at AC Milan. He started very strongly. He had a good sort of first season or so. After that, few managers in and out of the club. His form began to dip a little bit. And in 2020, he was sold to Lyon for 20 million euros. So AC Milan decided to take a hit on him. Since he's been at Lyon, he's refound his feet, he's refound his form, and he's constantly being linked with teams not only in England but also other parts of Europe. Paqueta is a strong, well-rounded midfielder. He has a fantastic positional awareness, brilliant dribbling ability, and he can even get back and cover the ball back. He excites me, This is the type of player, this is a marquee signing. This is the sort of player that West Ham need to be going for, especially when you hear comments from Moyes after the Man City defeat, or shortly after the Man City defeat, indeed, saying that we need exciting type of players. I can't build this guy up enough. He seems like a great character. He's got a great work ethic. He's full of flair. He's just got everything for me. And, he seems quite a loyal player as well, because, when PSG went out to Real Madrid in last season's Champions League match, where they was winning quite comfortably and it got overturned in the second leg, a lot of the PSG fans turned on some of the PSG players, namely Neymar, and they were booing him constantly. And Paqueta came out and said, I don't know what you guys are doing. This guy, Neymar, is fantastic in the Brazilian camp. He brings the teams together. He brings the players together. So to me, Paqueta's got a little bit of loyalty about him, which I sort of like. He didn't have to get involved. He didn't have to get involved in this, but he did. So, he's a progressive passer. He's a dribbler. He's got flair. He's got fantastic passing statistics. His success rate at dribbles and passes, to me, it's a no-brainer. We spoke about it on our WhatsApp group in the week, and we've been linked with him in various news agencies. I think we've got to go and get this guy. I can't speak highly enough of him. I know some of the other lot can't either speak highly enough of him. I just hope Moyes sees him as his Payet. Okay, moving away from that, great comments from Moyes at the start of the week. We move on to other comments that we've had later on in the week, which I sort of admire. But in the same breath, it allows the seed of doubt to be planted into West Ham fans' minds. So David Moyes has said that he will live or die by his transfer decisions. But again, as per January, claims that the owners are backing him to sign not just any player, but really good players at West Ham United. Now, in my opinion, West Ham needs to sign another 3 or 4 good quality players, especially with time running out in the transfer window. And whilst we have been impressed with the players we've brought in, because we brought in some good players, and we did them deals pretty quickly as well. We need players in again now. We've got all sorts of injuries, especially at the back, centre back, and we need players in. But Moyes is basically, in some people's eyes, preparing us for the worst. To say you live and die by your decisions is admirable, and I would expect any manager to say something similar, because that's how you can judge them. You can only judge them on their performances on the pitch, and your performances on the pitch are generally controlled by the players you bring in. Now, as I said, Moyes has brought in some great players, some players that have done admirably at West Ham United, but his recent comments are worrying, to say the least. And I'm very optimistic. So Moyes goes on to say, you'll probably lose your job if you don't recruit particularly well. Not always, but it's going to be a big part to play in it. So I think getting good recruitment in is really vital. That's true. We have had good recruitment thus far this window. Okay. Now, he goes on to talk about the Czech boys, Soufal and Souček. He said he brought them in so we would finish definitely outside the bottom three. He goes on to say we had an unbelievable 2 years where we went from fourth bottom of the league to pushing fifth and sixth in the Premier League, and we've sort of continued that. So the level of player we're looking for now, or we're looking to buy players who can get us into the top six or keep us in the top six. So that in itself is a different challenge. Quite rightly, we don't want to go out there and buy any Tom, Dick and Harry. We don't want to go out there and throw money at anyone. We want to get the right players in, not just up here, what they're like mentality-wise, what they bring to the changing room, but also the quality of player that we're going to bring in. But the problem is, with time running out, we may be drawn into drastic decisions, buying players just to fill a gap, which Moyes says he doesn't want to do. Moyes goes on to say, I have to say the club have been really good as far as they're putting the finances up. They're giving me every opportunity to try and do that, but we're still building. And while you're doing that, if you try and say we're going to buy top boys, then this is my experience telling me it's not the way to go. You put a layer on another layer on another layer. If you have billionaires running your club, you can say we can spend as much as we like. We don't have that, so you've got to try and do it in a wee bit of a calculated way. He's right in what he's saying, he's right in what he's saying in regards to basically getting what you can afford. We are not owned by Saudi royal family like Newcastle, like City. We're not owned by, absolute billionaires. We know that, right? Okay. But the problem, what's happening now is that if you believe reports that we're seeing, possibly we're being cheapskates again. Now, I'm a big advocate of West Ham, Newman and Moyes at the minute with who they've brought in. But if you believe the stories that are coming out at the moment now, the fact that the German defender at PSG, apparently we've offered 10 million less than his asking value. If that's true, that is that's ludicrous, really, because we got £15 million for Diop. Now, £15 million, okay, it is a loss on what we paid for him originally, but for a fifth choice centre back, which he has become, and somebody who's really out of favour with the management to some extent, and to a player that some of the fan base are questioning. £15 million to me is a fantastic price to get for him from Fulham. Now, Thilo Kehrer, that's it, I can't remember his name a minute ago, he's a German international. He's 25, German international. Okay, he hasn't played loads of games for Germany. He's played about 20 games, I believe. But he's a step up on what we've got. This is the sort of signing that we need to get in. I was excited by Aguerd, and what's happened to Aguerd is just the usual West Ham bit of luck that we seem to get. But if we've got 15 million for Diop, just take that 15 million and offer 15 million for this guy. Because at the moment, especially at centre-back position, we're desperate. We are absolutely desperate. But I'm going to go into that. I'm going to go into that in a minute. Moyes continues to go on. I didn't buy just anybody in January. It wasn't because the club didn't want to buy anybody. It was because I couldn't find the ones I wanted, and we bid really big for top players. So I sort of get a bit annoyed when people quite often blame the board. Moyes is, again, avidly supporting and bigging up the board. And I believe Moyes here. I think Moyes is getting the backing, as the window has proven. He is getting the backing, all right? But they don't have the money that the Qatarians or the Saudis have. The problem is here is that Moyes, it's not a problem, but Moyes is being picky, and probably quite rightfully so. But the problem is we are in dire straits, especially at the centre-back position. We've got Dawson, who, according to recent reports now, is being looked at because he might possibly need an operation. Now, as much as that's bad news, Dawson was injured a lot last season, but played through the pain barrier with injections or whatnot. Ogbonna suffered his serious injury, and as much as we want him to get back to the player he was, he may never. But even so, he's 4 to 6 weeks away from being available. We've got Aguerd, who we know what happened to him was shocking, and just our luck, if you like. But, that injury was a good few weeks ago now. Our priority is centre-back now. It's changed. We've got Skamaka in up front. Our priorities at the minute will be getting a centre-back in place. Look, we're probably not going to get anyone through the door in time to play against Forest, all right? But if we do, that'd be brilliant. But if the story about Dawson's to be believed, then we need to be going out and we need to be getting someone like Tielo Kera. Look, I'm not a whinge bag. I don't know where that come from. Sorry. I just want West Ham to get bodies in there, but I sort of agree with Moyes on the other side. Not just any old bodies. Now we've been linked with a lot of Man United players recently, and on paper, whether you like it or not, Man United are a bigger club than West Ham, right? We know they're not having a good time of it over a recent couple of seasons. But I would take players like Lindelof. I would take players like Eric Bailly, if fully fit, because we know he has injury problems. Because they're good players. Lindelof, for example, has a massive international experience. Swedish international. I think he's a good player. Why wouldn't he do good at West Ham United? We're not taking rejects. We're taking players out of a club that has been in turmoil for 2 seasons. I don't see the problem with that. But for me, the guy is Tielo Kera. If we could get Tielo Kera from PSG, the German international defender, to come in and help us out in our problems in the back four, if we could get Lucas Paquetá in to give us that Payet, that Di Canio style of play that we all crave, I'd be over the moon. Are we just dreaming that we can get in these types of players? I don't know. Now, allegedly, Tierra, the German defender at PSG, I can never say his name, Kera. Apparently, his agent is flying into London for talks with somebody on Thursday. Again, could be rumours, just depends on what you believe. I've rambled on a bit here, haven't I? But I'm not desperate yet. I want players in, as you all do. Technically, we've got about 20 first teamers or first squad or a 20-man squad, and 3 of those are goalkeepers. Quite worrying, isn't it? We've had poor injuries in defence. We've had terrible luck with Aguerd. I don't think we can afford to ship anyone else out because players that we bring in there are just replacing the players that we let go. Yes, most of those players we let go were deadwood. They weren't going to get a look in Krau, Vlasic, Masuaku, Fredericks. But let's get some impetus now going forward in the transfer market. Let's get some flair through the door. Let's get some stability. Let's get some stability at the back. Let's get some help at the back. It's not a case of throwing our toys out of the pram because of the Man City defeat. And I'll never throw my toys out of the pram. It's not what I'm about. But it's more for me the manner of that defeat. And whilst I was buoyed by the comments Moyes made quite soon after that defeat about getting in Payet type players, today's latest events talking about, he's not going to just buy any old player, which I sort of agree with, where he's not going to waste money on players that he don't want, which I sort of agree with, where he's saying that the board have backed him, which he said in January, which some of us did question. We just want players in at West Ham. We want good calibre of players. We have got good players in so far, in my opinion, but far too many are going out the other way. So the squad is getting smaller. But is it quality over quantity? Is that what Moyes is looking at? But if you want to fight on 4 fronts, then you probably need a bit more quantity. It's a really difficult conundrum, right? I think West Ham need to sign 3 or 4 good quality players. It's quite right that under Moyes, we have had a much more considered, we've been more careful and very, very much more strategic in the transfer window and our whole recruitment philosophy. But the problem is, when you lose players to the numbers that we have, the due diligence that Moyes takes in signing players, both as a player and a character, does slow things down. The problem is that Divering Dave, as a lot of people refer to him, will always have that title with him. I don't think it's Divering to be careful who you buy. I don't think it's Divering to try and buy the right type of players for you and your philosophy and what you have got in the West Ham project. And if you look at the signings we've made, Downs, Scamacca, whoever else, Aguerd, they happened very quickly. So there was no Divering there. If Moyes likes someone, he will go and get them. And I'm hoping that the Payet type player that we go for is Lucas Paqueta. And I'm also hoping that we get the German international defender from Paris Saint-Germain, Kerrer. So, once again, that concludes my daily ramble. I have gone off on an absolute ramble. I do apologise if I've waffled on a bit, but I thought I'd let my frustrations out. This is by far the longest video I've ever made. So, as I said, if you do like what you've seen, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell notification so we can tell you when shows are coming up and going live. Once again, thanks for watching. I've been John. This is Claret and Booze. Come on, you irons. Let's get some of them flair players through the window. Oh, and the centre back.